Am I overreacting for being tired of predicting my husband's every need? I 28F didn't realize how much emotional labor I was doing in my marriage until I stopped doing it and everything fell apart. My husband 30M has always been moody, but early in the relationship he framed it as being sensitive and in tune with emotions. What that actually meant was, if I didn't predict how he was feeling or what he wanted in any given moment, he interpreted it as a failure on my part. If I cooked dinner and it wasn't the exact meal he'd secretly hoped for, he'd say, "You didn't pay attention today." If I didn't pick up on his vibe after work, whether he wanted company, silence, affection, or space, he'd sigh dramatically and go quiet. I started shaving myself down mentally, always scanning the room and adjusting my behavior to match whatever he projected. For a while, I thought this was normal. I thought this was what love meant, being attentive, being intuitive, being considerate. But his version of intuitive meant mind reading. If he wanted a snack but didn't say anything, and I didn't magically bring one, he'd call me out of tune. If he had a stressful day and I didn't ask the exact right question in the exact right tone, he accused me of not caring. There were times I'd plan whole evenings around the possibility of him being in a bad mood because I'd learned that guessing wrong meant hours of icy silence. He never yelled, never threatened, just weaponized disappointment. Sometimes disappointment hurts more. A few weeks ago, I hit a wall. We were at dinner and he seemed fine. Not cheerful, not upset, just neutral. So I talked like normal. Halfway through the meal, he put down his fork and said, "You really didn't notice? I'm upset." I asked what happened, and he said, "If you were paying attention, I wouldn't have to explain it." That sentence snapped something inside me. I realized I was being held responsible for emotions he refused to communicate. I said, "I'm not doing this anymore. If you need something, you have to tell me." His face twisted like I'd insulted him. He barely talked for the rest of the night. So I followed through. I stopped guessing. I stopped analyzing every sigh. If he wanted something, he had to say it. If he was upset, he had to name it. At first, he looked confused. Then frustrated. Then deeply offended. For the next few days he walked around like a wounded animal, short answers, pouting, dragging his feet. He kept making comments like, "I shouldn't have to spell everything out, and other wives would know." I ignored the bait. Then came the twist. His mom invited us over for dinner. She pulled me aside at one point and said, with this condescending smile, "He's always expected the women in his life to have intuition. I did it for his father. My mother did it for mine. It's part of being a good wife." She said it like she was passing down some generational secret. I just stared at her, because suddenly everything made sense. He wasn't moody, he was raised to believe his emotional needs were something women should predict and manage for him. He didn't communicate because he'd never had to. His mother bragged about bringing coffee before her husband asked, anticipating his moods, preloading chores before he complained. My husband grew up believing women read men like weather, and that failing to do so was a moral failing. On the drive home, I told him his mom talked to me. He didn't deny it. He said, "Yeah, that's how relationships work. You just sense things." I said, "No. That's how unpaid emotional labor works." He called me dramatic. I called him entitled. It was the closest we'd ever come to a real fight. Now we're stuck. He thinks I've become cold because I don't hover around him waiting for clues. I think he's been conditioned to treat emotional communication as optional. We're circling each other like two people learning a language we should have learned years ago. Part of me wonders if I've been enabling this dynamic. The other part wonders if he's capable of changing when he doesn't see a problem, just an inconvenience. So now I'm left wondering, am I overreacting for refusing to predict my husband's needs anymore? Or am I finally reacting like someone who's done being his emotional interpreter?